I'm Angela, 71.
Standing on my balcony, a glass of champagne in hand, I'm looking at the city lights, reflecting on the past year. It's been a journey of self-discovery and transformation, from the humiliation of my 70th birthday to the quiet triumph of tonight's celebration. A year ago, I was a different person. I was trapped in a life where I was nothing more than a convenience to my family. My son, Brian, 42, and his wife, Lisa, 39, treated me like an ATM, a free babysitter, and a joke. My grandson, Jake, 17, was so absorbed in his own world that he barely noticed me. My husband, Carl, had passed away 5 years ago. He was a kind and loving man, and our life together was filled with joy and love. After his death, I tried to fill the void by focusing on my family. I taught Lisa all my family recipes, shared stories about Carl, and welcomed her into our traditions. I even gave them the down payment for their house as a wedding present. But it was never enough. On my 70th birthday, Brian reserved a private room at Le Jardin, an upscale French restaurant downtown. The place was beautiful, with crystal chandeliers and white linen tablecloths. A birthday cake with delicate sugar flowers waited on a side table. I dressed up in my favorite purple dress, the one Carl had always loved, and wore the diamond necklace he'd given me on our 35th anniversary. When I arrived, Brian kissed my cheek, but his eyes were on his phone. Jake mumbled a greeting without looking up from his game. Lisa, in her red designer dress and glittering jewelry, kissed me. The dinner was filled with superficial conversation. Brian talked about his promotion, Lisa about her latest charity event, and Jake about needing a new car. No one asked about my life, my weekly knitting class, or the community garden I'd helped start. Then came the champagne toast. Lisa stood up, glass raised. "To Angela on her 70th birthday," she said. I smiled, thinking it was a genuine moment. "To the old lady who will soon be in a nursing home. Soon, you'll just be a memory to us all," she continued, her smile never wavering. The room erupted in laughter. Brian chuckled, Jake snickered, and even the waiter had to suppress a smile. I sat there, frozen, the champagne glass halfway to my lips. The words hung in the air like poison. "Come on, Angela. It's just a joke," Lisa said. "Don't be so sensitive." I forced a smile and took a small sip. The champagne tasted bitter. When Brian dropped me off at my house, a beautiful Victorian that Carl and I had shared for 35 years, he said, "Great dinner, Mom. See you at Sunday lunch." Once inside, I locked the door and let the tears come. I cried for the years I'd spent trying to please a family that saw me as nothing but a burden. I cried for Carl, who would have been furious if he'd heard Lisa's toast. That night, as I lay in bed, unable to sleep, I made a decision. I was done being a doormat. My life wasn't over. It was just beginning, and it would be on my terms. The next morning, I called my bank, where manager Tom had known Carl and me for over 25 years. When I told him I wanted to liquidate my $7 million estate, his eyebrows shot up. "That's a substantial liquidation, Angela. Are you sure?" he asked. I was certain. I wanted to close all accounts except my checking account, which I'd keep open with $15,000. Then I called my lawyer, Mark. I needed to change my will. Brian and his family would no longer be my primary beneficiaries. Mark was surprised. "This seems sudden," he said. But I explained everything about the birthday toast, the years of disrespect. He understood. I also pulled out the travel brochure for the Caribbean cruise I'd been secretly dreaming about since Carl died. I'd always wanted to travel, but Carl's health had never allowed it. Now, I was going to do it. Over the next 2 weeks, I sold my car to a young couple. I hired a property manager to handle the sale of my house. I donated most of my clothes to the local women's shelter. Brian called me several times, confused and irritated. He demanded explanations, but I just told him I needed some space. The morning of my departure arrived. I packed my suitcases and took one last walk through the house. I whispered to Carl's memory, "I hope you understand. I need to find myself again." At the airport, I was both terrified and exhilarated. While waiting at the gate, my phone buzzed with texts from Brian and Lisa. "Mom, where are you?" "Jake needs a ride to practice," Brian texted. I ignored them. On the cruise, I met a wonderful woman named Grace, a 65-year-old widow. She'd spent the last few years traveling the world. She became my guide and friend. We had breakfast together every morning, attended classes and lectures during the day, and explored the ports when we docked. In Jamaica, I discovered a love for painting. I bought a set of paints and started capturing the vibrant colors of the island. In the Bahamas, I swam with dolphins, something I'd always dreamed of doing. One day, I received a call from the cruise director. Another passenger had seen my paintings and mentioned my talent to the staff. They wanted to display my works in the ship's art gallery. I was shocked. I was just an amateur, but they said the freshest perspectives often came from those who hadn't been taught the rules. As the cruise went on, I realized that I was changing. I was no longer just Brian's mother or Carl's wife. I was Angela, a woman with her own interests, dreams, and talents. When we docked in Miami, I knew it was time to go home, not to stay in the old life, but to settle things. I'd already purchased a small apartment in the city center, sight unseen except for virtual tours. When I landed, my phone exploded with notifications. Brian's messages went from anger to concern to a strange acceptance. The most recent one said, "Mom, I don't understand why you left, but I hope you're happy. Jake misses you. Please come home." I checked into a hotel first. I needed one more night of independence. The next day, I drove to Brian and Lisa's house. When I pulled into the driveway, Brian opened the door. "Mom, you're back," he said, his voice cracking. Jake's eyes widened when he saw me. "Grandma, you look different," he said. Lisa was at a yoga class. When she came back, she was shocked to see me. "You're back from your adventure," she said, making it sound like a silly thing. I told them I'd sold the house and was moving into my new apartment downtown. Lisa was furious. "Downtown? That's so far from us. How will you help with Jake's schedule or Sunday lunches?" she asked. I told them I wouldn't be driving Jake anymore and wouldn't be hosting Sunday lunches. I'd be happy to meet them at restaurants once a month. Brian looked lost. Lisa snapped, "You can't just change the rules after all this time. We depend on you." I replied calmly, "You depend on me, but you don't respect me. I love you, but I also love myself now, and I won't go back to being treated like a convenience." Jake, surprisingly, nodded in agreement. "Grandma's right. We've been taking her for granted," he said. Lisa shot him a look, but the truth was out. I assured them I wasn't cutting them out of my life. I just wanted a relationship based on mutual respect. If they didn't agree, it would be their choice. Over the past year, my new apartment has become a true home. I've enrolled in painting classes at the local art center, joined a book club, and volunteered at the animal shelter. I meet Brian and Jake for dinner once a month, sometimes with Lisa. Our relationship is still strained, but there's hope. As for Lisa, she's slowly starting to see me as a person in her own right. At tonight's birthday party, when Sandra, my painting instructor, announced that I'd been selected for an upcoming art exhibition, Lisa's eyes widened in surprise. She's beginning to realize that I'm not the old Angela anymore. I've learned that it's never too late to discover who you really are. I've become someone stronger, someone who refuses to be diminished by others' limited expectations. Here's to the last laugh and a new beginning.